guys, hey everybody, checking the comments while you guys join in. And yeah. My comments I don't think they work today, but I'm still gonna then do, something's wrong with the comments today. All right. Yeah. Well, hi all. Yeah, unfortunately, I'm gonna just do a YouTube chat. I don't think I will be able to highlight comments today, but we'll try our best to see them. Yeah, something's wrong today. I think it's on YouTube side, or isn't. Well, okay, it is what it is. All right, so hey everybody. I see a few people join in, say hi in the comments. I just turned them on so I can see them. Yeah, and let's jump into the topic today. So let me adjust the screen. And all right, so today we're gonna talk about indexing. And what is it, how to do it, what's the thing. This is the best kind of example I found without remaking it, of kind of how does this work. And hey Raymar. So it's as simple as Google crawler or Google bot or robot spider, or however you want to call that algorithm just checks your website, checks your website, analyzes it, then brings back that information to the server. Google stores it on the server, and then whenever somebody searches for something, it matches your website crawling data with other website crawling data and shows or doesn't show your website depending on the search query. So that's how it works. That's how it is. That's that simple, for those who just don't know. So I think this image kind of explains it best. And then to see if your site has been indexed or not, it's very simple. Just type into Google site and then your website or site and your URL, and if you get results, that means Google has data on it. If you don't get, then it's not indexed. And yeah, it's as simple as that. So for example, if I would, all right, then one sec. So for example, if I would Google a website that I don't want to be indexed yet, I would get no results, and Google will suggest me to try Google Search Console. That means that it's not indexed. So that's that simple. And if there would be some results, for example, like this, which is like Webflow has 868,000 results approximately. That's how many roughly indexed results Webflow has. So so that's how it works. All right. So if anybody will have any questions throughout this whole thing, let me know. Say hi if you're just joined in, and let's continue. So first we have to understand that this is kind of, I found this data and made this on my own. So just hey Isabel. So I found this data, and I don't know how reliable it is, but this is something I found, and I just made these kind of pie charts out of it. But just to give an example about indexing, for example, Cambridge Dictionary has only 5% pages indexed, and then Walmart, when you count product pages, have only 45% of those pages indexed. So this just tells us that just because you have a website and just because it's big and important and everybody knows you, doesn't mean that your site will be indexed, and that's normal. And we'll see later why. And by the way, the bigger the websites get, the more easier it is to have these crazy percentages of unindexed data. And on the flip side, very small and new websites can have similar or even worse numbers. So that's some data. So everybody's like, all right, so this is not an issue as I thought it is maybe, but yeah. And website indexing can be a business problem. So in this scenario, Walmart has roughly almost half of the products that Walmart has are not indexed, which would mean that they want to sell something, but they can't because Google is not showing. So users can only find those pages throughout their like after they enter Walmart website and then go to specific category or specific product or something like that, they can find it, but they can't find it through search engines. So yeah, that's simple, short kind of intro. And then the only thing we have to understand on this is, so indexing comes in 3 stages, which is discovery, crawling, indexing. Basically, first crawler has to find your website or discover URL, then it has to crawl and analyze it, and then crawler has to bring back that data to the server so that Google algorithm can serve it and use it for certain things. And it's quite simple, but at the same time, I love the analogy of a book. So if you really think about it as a human, how human kind of compares, how we compare to the crawler, we find something. For example, we find a book, we read the book, and then we evaluate the book. And that evaluate part is then we recommend or not recommend. So something like that. And in other words, all right. So in other words, every page on your website is like the book, and every website is like a bookshelf filled with different types of books. And then Google's like index of everything Google knows about the internet is like a library of different shelves there that would have different types. So whenever you're building your website, you imagine that you're building a bookshelf where every page is a book, and yeah, and whenever somebody searches for something, imagine that your page is fighting every other page on the online to kind of for that hotspots. So that's roughly how I like to imagine it, and that's how kind of the way I see this kind of book versus page idea when thinking about like how websites and how crawlers and humans kind of compare in this scenario. All right, so when it comes to indexing, as a website owner, you need to make sure that Google bots can access as much content on your website as possible. So basically, it just means that you have to be aware. Doesn't matter if you run a website or build a website or sell a website or doing it for yourself or for your business or whatever, you have to be always aware that if you want organic traffic, unless you're gonna bring in traffic from any other source, you have to build it so it can be indexed. That's as simple as that. So the most annoying question I get, and you probably also got if you're a Webflow developer, designer, or anything, you ever delivered a project to client, or you have this question if you have your own website: how long does it take for Google to index a page? I don't know. Nobody knows. It depends. It's like always the worst answer. Being an SEO means answering almost every question. It depends, and then giving the different factors that will affect this. So same here. We don't know, right? But we know, where was it? So, yeah. So, but we know that there's a delay between indexing and between when you publish something and indexing. So that's normal, and we're gonna soon find out why. All right. So there are also stages of indexing, and one of them is like partial indexing. Basically, crawler analyze some of the data or analyze enough data to make some determinations or something. So if you're in your, and also there's that delay between index. So this is an example of a site that I haven't touched for a long time. I just published some pages back in the day, and those are not index pages. I know they will not be indexed from day one because they're low quality. That means Google kind of keeps them as when every once in a while, Google will try to re-index it, but if it's still this low quality, they're not even gonna gather that information. Isabel is saying, yeah, worst question. Can we get a timeline when we'll rank? Yeah, so we're talking only indexing here, and we don't know, you know? And then ranking is another whole thing. But Isabel, it's like this. If anybody ever asks you that, remind them that in international search queries, as in those that are in English and everybody competes on them, not something like localized or in a specific language where you're not fighting everybody in the internet, ranking average first position page that ranks for first position for any search query has been there for at least 2-3 years. So that's average among the internet, and then everything else depends. Yeah. Penny saying page lost yesterday. Why isn't my site showing up? Yes. So with that, Penny, we come to this part, which is the most annoying table in Search Console. Everybody knows that, whoever owned a website, and and this kind of indicates to you. Again, I'm pulling data from one of the sites that I launched as a fun project a year or more ago, and I haven't touched it since then. So, but yeah, it's just these things that allow us, and we can see here the discovered and crawled and currently not indexed, which means basically the stages that the crawler takes. So that discovered means Google is aware about the page. Crawled means Google tried to look at it, but at the same time didn't like what they see, or still analyzing the data. It depends. And then other things are more technical SEO stuff. So yeah, all right. So the most common cause for partial indexing is duplicate content. So all right. So that's Webflow thing. I think one of the biggest kind of issue when you work with Webflow, because CMS are so easy to do. This also means it's very easy to have duplicate content. And there's like a difference how I see my designer or developer friends make, for example, fields inside CMS collection and how I do it. Just because I always assume that, if we use this information or this text too much all over the website, then it's going to be duplicate, and then some other people that I kind of sometimes see or work with don't think that's going to be an issue. So understanding that some duplicate content is okay, but always duplicating everything everywhere and just pinning that like together is not the right way to do it. So that's kind of, I would say, if there's something unique when it comes to Webflow websites versus other types of website building techniques, is that we use CMS collections so much. There's going to be one more, but the first and main one is that we use websites CMS collection so much that it's very easy to kind of fall into that spinning together CMS problem where you're reusing the same content. But that's easy to solve if you sometimes rewrite some stuff or have another field and then don't use the same information inside, let's say, a card that links to something and the page itself. And there's a lot of ways to kind of go about it, but that's always going to be the answer. In order to avoid duplicate content, you have to avoid kind of using the same content, so you need more of that. So yeah, coming back to this, that not indexed table and indexed, it's normal to have it, to see this kind of results and gradually get more and more. And this is an example of kind of poorly built website, because those not indexed pages are not going lower, they're staying the same. That means, and in this case, for example, I can tell you what's the problem here, because I know the site, the content in those gray pages are bad or duplicate or doorway pages, which we're gonna get to that. So, all right. So why is indexing a challenge? Well, there's two things why indexing is a big problem, and why it's a challenge, and why it's not like I just publish, like Benny said, page launched yesterday, why isn't my site showing up on Google? It's because everybody launched their website yesterday, and everybody changed something on their website yesterday, and there's so many websites. So basically, the website is growing, and there's other websites, and Google is trying to use their resources the best way they know how, because they can't index and show everything, everybody. So they have layers and layers of things. And also websites are getting heavier. And as a joke, I put the same meme here, but just poorly made. So basically that's also a factor, meaning Google needs more and more resources, therefore to crawl the same amount of pages, as there's more megabytes on those pages, meaning more data to be analyzed, which basically means, well, it's good for you if your website is lean and doesn't have, and pages are very small in size, as in megabytes. So yeah, and we all know that idea where, average web page should be roughly 2 megabytes. At least that's what I found on Google. I don't know how actually it is. I have no idea, but this just tells us that if you upload an image on your page that it's 2 megabytes in total, you're already breaking it. So, that lean part. But, all right. So, where was it? Okay. Yeah. So, in order to kind of deal with this whole web load and growing internet and growing website size, of course, Google and of course engineers at Google has like loads of mechanisms that avoid crawling low quality pages. This means that gray thing, by the way, if anybody has any questions or ideas or suggestions, just drop them in the comments and we're gonna chat about them. So that means that's why I know that this gray number doesn't change that much, even though it's months are passing, because I know it's low quality content and Google will not use extra resources to analyze it. So basically, if they find something that is low quality, doesn't matter what errors it has, it's just gonna stop the process there. And that's where that part comes in. So those mechanisms to avoid crawling low quality pages are the way to save resources for Google. So basically, this tells us that Google wants us not to waste their time, and they will not waste their time and energy and resources, crawling power, crawling budgets, if they can, right? So I'm not gonna get into this topic, but on the same, this is a topic maybe for another day, because it requires like more examples and also it requires more specific kind of building. But basically, with Webflow CMSs, if you categorize things or put them into certain brackets or something, so when in CMS collection group something, it can become a doorway page, and Google doesn't like that. And doorway page is basically, it might be, a lot of times doorway pages can be useful for users inside, for users that are already on your website. So basically it can be great user interface or experience. For example, click on this and then you get selections and then you go there to another page or something. But that's assuming that that visitors came, let's say for example, from your homepage and then clicked on that and then clicked on the next thing and then clicked on one more thing and then continued. However, Google always analyzes every page as in, what if user lands here first? that means pages that have not a lot of content are identical to other pages and don't have enough content to kind of show Google that it's not a duplicate, it's a different one, or something like that. They will call them doorway pages, and it's usually a content problem, but that's another topic for another day. If anybody wants to learn more, ask me on Twitter or something, so I'll try to kind of compile how I see this, but this is something you can Google and learn about it a little bit. So basically what I'm saying so far, before we get into how to get your pages indexed, which we're gonna get soon, we kind of established three main things, which is low quality, crawl budget, and server. And to explain each one of these, low quality means just poor content that doesn't match other things on the internet, content that based on the search intent doesn't match it, there's not enough of it, anything. And then low quality can also mean low quality of code, which is mean it's bloated, it's too heavy, the page is super big, or loads very, like anything else that would ruin the experience. So experience and content kind of. Crawl budget is on average, in general, how well Google trusts your website as a whole. So very young websites with no links coming into them from other websites, websites that every time when Google tries to crawl your website finds only low quality content or many other trust related issues, will not increase your crawl budget. But every time you show some sort of trustworthiness to Google, it will increase your crawl budget. That's why old, big, and a lot of links having websites will be indexed by minutes and can show up in the next or by out, like in a few hours, and can show up in the first position even for competitive queries almost today or next day. And on the flip side, new sites, even if they're doing everything right, not necessarily will gonna have that trustworthiness. Because Google also are running tests showing different pages in different positions to different users, seeing how they react to your site. So Google also needs data on your website and on your page, not only crawler data. So, and then the last one is your server. Well, with Webflow, I think server was never an issue. So we have that going for us. If we would own something like a WordPress site, that would be another kind of issue, but thank God we don't have this issue. So we have to worry only about poor structure, poor quality, poor content, too much code, too big images and things like that, as in the quality of it. And we have to worry about typical SEO, as in the more pages rank, the easier it is to rank new pages, and that comes with their own challenges in links and good content and a lot of things. So crawl budget and low quality. All right, so Penny is saying, once the full site launches, I submit the new sitemap and indexing happens more quickly. Yeah, we're gonna get to that. Yes, exactly. That's one of the things, but there's more. Yeah. Colin is saying ew, WordPress. Yeah, so at least we don't have this issue. And yeah, I'm super happy. That's the main reason why I stopped doing SEO for WordPress sites, is always having this issue, not only because of the servers, but also because of other stuff, because everything is getting broken all the time, and also low quality. If you want to create some sort of unique thing, but you're tied to a template or something, you cannot, for example, you cannot add what we would call a rich text block underneath the page just to improve it or something like that. So, important part. Oh yeah, and then the crawl budget. I made this meme is because, there is crawl budget, to explain one more time, is something that Google assigns to your website, which is like daily, monthly, yearly, nobody knows how actually, but more of a average, let's say average per day load. Doesn't mean if it's a URL, load by URLs or load by megabytes or whatever, that your site can be crawled for. So that means the more they trust you, the more they assign to you, that's your crawl budget, right? So sometimes, yeah. All right, so, and also one thing to remember, Google is software and every software has bugs. So there are certain random times when websites will get de-indexed or re-indexed, or sometimes indexing stops and then comes back again. It happens, rare, but also not something to be very scared about, because this could happen. It's software, you know? So yeah, so basically, you know, bugs happen. What you gonna do about it? Nothing. You know, they're trying their best and you should be too. All right, so now we're getting to the part we touched on how, what, indexing, basic concepts. And now we're going to how to make sure you will be indexed. So everybody wants to be indexed because they want that free, fun, juicy traffic. And indexing is what stops them from getting it. But actually it's more complex than that, because just because something gets indexed and shows up when you want it to show up, another problem is to show up for terms that you want to rank for, and that's another problem for another day. But today we're gonna just focus on this bad boy right here, which is indexing and how to get that happening. So step one, make sure that you don't have no index tags, which is this thing right here, and make sure that you don't have blocked URLs in robots.txt. That's start. On the flip side, make sure that you have these things on pages that you don't want to get indexed, and we're gonna touch on those later. But first step is, if you're working on something and before release, it's quite common for developers, or is just to block globally the whole site or block sections that you work on. Because I had like an experience that we worked on the site for way too long, and we had a subdomain made for it while we were working on it. So let's say new.domain.com as a version that we would be testing it on, and then eventually Google just picked it up and indexed it. We didn't submit no sitemap. There was no links coming in, just because the original site had a lot of authority. Google just somehow spotted it, maybe because we were using Chrome browsers or something, and just indexed the whole thing. So that's something to avoid while developing, by disallowing indexing and disallowing and just adding a HTML title, HTML tag. Yeah. And that stuff can be done in the indexing section in Webflow. That's simple stuff. Everybody knows this. Everybody knows. And then just generating robots.txt. My suggestion is a simple, just Google, robots.txt generator and kind of try to learn how that works. But at the same time, I still use them. I just open it up and generate based on what I want to close. Allow and disallow stuff, and disallow stuff you can also make as in disallow the whole CMS with one line, which is the easiest part. So yeah, and this part is also like a Webflow specific thing, where you should always disable indexing for the Webflow.io, even if you're using it for a while, unless you want this to be the main domain, because don't forget, domain here is webflow.io, not your domain. So if this gets indexed, and then if this version gets indexed and then you want another original domain to get re-indexed, that means that this will be a duplicate content issue, as in Google sees these two websites as completely two different entities. And now one of them already proven to have all this content before the other one. Well, you know how this goes. So better always disable subdomain indexing, even if you don't have a domain in the beginning, and you will add it later. While you're working on it, just disable indexing, and it's gonna be easier. Once again, yeah, we're gonna get to that. All right, so as Penny said, step 1, go to Search Console and just submit it. That's it, you know. So if your clients don't know what it is and you're just help them with that part. Like, it's as simple as just adding a URL into Search Console here and just pressing submit, and that's it. It's done. You're done. It's as simple as that, and that's step 1 after finishing any website. Now about the sitemap. So I more and more started on Webflow sites doing the custom sitemap, and I think everybody should, because and the reason is we can only lock CMS collection template pages, but we cannot we cannot draft them like we can with static pages, which means they will show up in the sitemap, and in a lot of cases you don't want that. Especially if you're still working on it, or especially if those, and very much especially if those CMS collection pages are just, you know, body with nothing in it, as in just white blank page, then you especially don't want them in the sitemap. And I think that's when the custom sitemap comes in. So if the site has any part that is not finished or still working on, then you always have to use custom sitemap, and that's a work on its own. You have to copy the current sitemap, delete stuff that you don't want on it, paste it in here without that stuff, submit it to Search Console, and whenever you make edits, you have to remember that you have to do that again, because it's not gonna, because it's like custom sitemap on Webflow, something you have to update, and then the one that automatically updates itself, that's the one that you would like. That's awesome feature to have, because URL for the sitemap stays the same. So yeah, I don't know. This is something more and more I started using this way, but I know it's a pain in the ass, you know, to maintain. All right, Colin is asking, will you touch on managing the indexing or not of CMS collections? Yeah, so I probably just answered that. So yes, I will remove them from the sitemap, and then yes, I sometimes add like no index tags, and I will put them in. So no index tag is not something I every time do, but I always add them to robots.txt if I think that they cannot be indexed. So, but ideally you do all three things. So you remove from the sitemap, you then add the no index tag, and you add a disallow in the robots. And Colin is also saying, for example, I have a few large CMS collections that are in various stages of content development, and they're getting indexed even though they aren't technically like that. Yeah, so subfolders, that's how it would go, and in robots.txt it would be as simple as just adding one line and leaving it as a subfolder. You don't need to specify specific items in that subfolder. So that's normal, but that doesn't stop indexing. That's the magic. Just because you ask Google not to index something doesn't mean that Google won't index it. Proof is, we had a site, we were working on it, and Google just decided to index it because we had loads of crawling budget and it was a subdomain and we didn't show it anywhere, and it was a hidden work in progress and got indexed. And also same goes for no follow links. Just because you ask Google to not to follow it, hence when this link leaves your website and it's a no follow one, which by the way on Webflow we still cannot do, thank God. I don't know why, but still. It still doesn't mean that Google will not follow it, because they decide. They are looking for the best content and want to organize it. And if that content is on a page that you don't want to get indexed, well, and they decide they want to index that page, especially if they're lacking certain type of information, they will just index it. And that happens so many times. So basically what I'm trying to say here, try to remove unfinished, empty pages or low quality pages to save that indexing juice, as in crawling budget, and just keep it clean, and also add no index tags, and also add robots.txt whenever you think it's mandatory. Alright, so after you change edits, if you edit something on a page and it's worth, you think it's worth for Google to know, you submit, use URL submission tool. So basically it goes to Search Console, add your URL here, then you just, it's gonna catch the index, and then it's gonna say, oh right, it's not indexed, or it might say here it's indexed, and then you can request re-indexing. You have a limit of these. It's like, I don't know, something around 15, 20, something around those terms. And then after submitting, in a day, by the way, sorry. So after requesting a few indexations, Google will say, yeah, stop it for today, thank you, come back tomorrow. So there is an API that you can use, and there is a Google Search Console API. If anybody dabbles in that, I would love to have you here. We could chat about fun stuff. I never worked on a site big enough that would matter, but I imagine there are many ways for custom and big builds where that's mandatory. But even on quite big and very big builds, still I don't see no value, because Google still has the crawling budget set for you. So maybe where you're insanely big and there's like a lot of people working on it, it's easier to do it that way, so your backend kind of pushes it through API. But you know, and the thing is about submitting and not submitting, because it's all based on crawling budget, submitting or not submitting doesn't do that much. At least some people think that, because it's all based on many factors in general. But that doesn't mean, I would still, if you edit something, just submit it. Takes a second, and you're doing what Google is asking you to do. So you're letting them know that you improved something, and yeah, try to make sure you improved something really, so it's valuable to re-index the page. It's not like I just fixed a few typos and a few words. No, I actually added a new section, loads of content, or changed the structure of it, or whatever happened. So yeah. Alright, so if anybody has any questions or ideas or specific kind of things you want me to look at, let me know, but we're going to be continuing here. Internal linking. So yeah, those who know me knows I love talking about internal linking, and yeah, that helps indexing your website by a lot, and it's mandatory to do great internal linking, and because of orphan page problems. So basically, if your page is in the sitemap, but it cannot be reached through the structure, and through the structure means no other page on that website links to it, then it's an orphan page, right? And there are tools that can find you that, and there are many things. Yeah, you can just Google orphan page checkers and things like that, so you don't need to have hrefs like I screenshotted here. But yeah, that's a big issue, because Google then assumes that it's just, you don't care about the page, because by internal linking you show Google which pages matter the most, because it's like your internal voting system. If you link 150 times on your website to a certain page, and then you link to another only 5 times throughout the whole website, well, it's clear that this one is more important with 150 than the one with 5. That's simple, right? So that's your internal voting system. As in other websites linking to you is external voting system saying, hey, if you want to do this, then check this website, and Google trusts that as well. So yeah, so make sure you don't have orphan pages, and then orphan pages. Oh, we're gonna come back to that in this moment. Another thing is JavaScript challenges, and when internal linking, back in the day, JavaScript was completely like not okay with Google and it couldn't understand. Now it's okay, it's better, it's getting better every time. So I'm not gonna get into this. Devs can, and more technical SEO guys can go into this, but in theory, just know JavaScript has to be double checked and there are things to it, and especially, yeah, developers to blame. So just, be aware of that. Okay, so orphan page is something like this. You cannot reach it from other pages on your website. And even if it has links, that's an important thing to note here, to other pages, they all become orphans. So yeah, avoid this. Everything has to be linked. So you don't make anything that will not have a link somewhere. And also from homepage, you should reach everything by 3 clicks. So that's a good structure. That means every page on your website has to be reached with less than 3 clicks from your homepage, which makes crawlers' life easier, right? And then everything has to be linked somewhere, so no orphan pages. Okay, that will help indexing. External linking. Okay, well, that part, it speeds up. Indexing. So if suddenly all the internet starts talking about your site, guess what? Google will want to double check what's there, even if they indexed it back in the day. But now a lot of people they notice a lot of links from other websites linking. They have to reevaluate your website. And also, that's how some sites rank with worse content against those sites that have better content. So yeah, it's, as I said, like external linking system. That's democracy of the internet. That's how it works. And also the problem is that one vote is not one website, but one website can have different influences of power, as in the more trusted they are by Google, the more they trust, Google trusts their vote. So that's what link building basically is, trying to secure as trustworthy as possible links from other websites to your websites, thus improving your ranking and other things. So yeah, all right. I'm not gonna go into detail, but actually that's how crawlers work, and that's how, like Colin was saying, hey, they also index. That's how they index some stuff, because there are so many spammy stuff on the internet, and everybody is linking to everything, and you should be linking to other pages because you want to show your credibility. So if you talk about something, you want to show that you read that thing, or that you suggest that thing to others. That helps your website trustworthiness and credibility. Hence, everybody's linking to everything, which basically means that crawlers never stop kind of crawling, something along those terms. So basically it means that crawlers always follow that maze of wires from one side to another and then to another, and then that's how they start jumping. So it's kind of like yeah, it's crazy. It's just so fast. You can go 17 website. It's like clicking on links in Wikipedia. You just go so far, so fast, and so much away from the topic you started at, that it's crazy. So internet works the same way. All right, not all content should be indexed. In the beginning, we spoke about that, hey, not everything gets indexed whether you like it or not. And there are like calculations that maybe 16% of the internet is indexed or stuff like that. But that also means that you have to understand that you don't want everything to be indexed, especially if it's like a big site. So your goal should be making sure that what Google indexes is high enough quality. You want it to be indexed, and also it's not something like sensitive information or anything, or so you want Google to index only the best things about your website, right? So yeah, so keep that in mind, and know about that stuff. And then on the flip side, most websites that are launched in the beginning and until they outgrow like thousands of pages should be, your goal is to index them. especially if they're like small, up to 100 pages or around 100 or something. You want them to get indexed. But that doesn't mean that it's going to happen like immediately and all of it will happen. That's why no website is ever done. You always improve and grow and improve and build and do stuff, you know. So there's a few questions you can check. Can crawlers find your content? So in this case, we're coming back to the same issue. Orphan pages, 3 clicks from the home page, and then other websites, maybe they are linking to it. So that stuff. Is your content hidden behind login forms? So if there's a password on your page, then it cannot get indexed. That means software, web apps, gated content or whatever will not get indexed by the crawler because, well, obviously crawler doesn't know the password, right? Are you relying on search forms? So this part is, if there's a search bar and some stuff can only be found by searching things, doesn't matter how you set it up, is like some sort of external server rendering or internal, there's no specific page for it, like doesn't matter what it is, but if you have to type something in to find something and there's no other way to find it, then could be that that's an issue as well. I added this here as a quality content thing. So we have to understand that crawlers can't read and they're not context oriented. So they're just reading your code. They're not actually reading your rendered page, which is actually not true because they do, and now they can read things inside images. So, but also you have to understand that what some things are there, what humans would understand on your site, like a joke or some sort of metaphor or something, crawlers will not get it because they're not human. So that part is quite important. Of course, with advent of AI, it becomes easier and easier for Google to do that. But at the same time, if you don't mention something, if you don't say that you do that, if you don't say certain word, if you don't link to something, then it's hard for crawler to get the context around it. And especially if there's like text and images or stuff like that, or like some sort of thing that is just assumed by the design or by the image or by the like a metaphor or something, crawlers will get lost, you know. And the clean website architecture, just check on that, like try to make sure that it's as everything, you know, if you can link to something, always link to something. That's why my advice is, instead of using text blocks on your sites, every paragraph, just always use a rich text block, because you never know when you need to you can add hyperlinks in that. So instead of using just text block, use rich text block and just type in the paragraph. You can set limits, or you can just add a extra info that, hey, here we if it's like a CMS collection, just in that field, just let them know, hey, this can be as long as this because of design, but that's like the power that you give, so for the architecture of the site and a lot of things. Anybody has any questions? So let me know. I'm gonna take a sip. All right, continuing. Yeah, so with that thing, I also added this part. Anything that is very unreachable, so it can be gated content, it can be menus that are shown differently to different people, it can be links that appear or disappear based on the users, it can be anything basically that changes, and Google cannot rely that every time it shows up it's gonna be there. They will devalue it, and that's why you have to avoid these things where you have to avoid things that makes Google think, are you A/B testing here? And if that's obvious that would happen in any scenario, then you have to know that Google will be like, yeah, I cannot trust that every time a user visits the site, they see that thing that I want to show them, hence I will just de-index it, and who cares? So keep that in mind whenever you're working on it. All right, so another indexing thing. So because we spoke about Google will not index stuff if they notice that it's duplicate content and nothing more, or not enough unique content, or a lot of other things. Translations also can count as duplicate content. So that's why we use hreflang tag. Just, Google this and learn how it works. With Webflow, if you translate it with something like vglot or any other plugin, yeah, it usually takes care of this, but you have to check it. And also, that's also needed because if you have same page in, let's say, Spanish and in English, but it's just different language, and it's not defined that this is the same version but in Spanish in code with these tags, that means, well, what will happen is Google will assume that it's the same content, even though language changes, but it's the same page, same content. So that's like a thing that not necessarily is always the problem, but you also have to double check. So be sure to know that if it's international website, there are rules to how to do it. All right, so don't let Google index sensitive data. I already kind of spoke about it, but Google will index what they can index if they want. So if you don't want something indexed, that doesn't mean that Google will not index it, and it will not be findable. So, and there is a way to delete things in Search Console from index, but that doesn't mean that happens. And I would know because we had like a WordPress project some time ago that got hacked, and there were so many new pages created to very spicy websites from that build. And what happened then was I removed everything eventually after we did a lot of other things to fix this. But first of all, Google didn't trust for 6 months that website because it indexed almost all of that content that came in so fast from the hack, from the breach, and then that content started ranking for those queries, which that website definitely doesn't want to rank for those queries. And then the more Google learned that the content is bad, the more it started trusting less. It just started trusting us less. And then eventually, not only we removed like almost immediately, but the index still stayed, even though we deleted the pages, but they will still show up and like a lot of things. And then eventually new pages would not be even touched by Google for like some time. And then 6 to 12, yeah, very spicy websites, Penny says, yes, that was very spicy websites. So basically, if Google indexed something, that's not an easy way out, as in like, hey, we don't want that, or sorry, somebody hacked us. No, it's more of now we're gonna have to deal with it. So basically, long story short, when a thing like this happens, is like 12, months of issues, given the fact that you were very much trusted before that. And if you weren't trusted before that at all, as in it's a new website, and let's say that happens, could be that you will need to change domain just to kind of be. So another thing is performance matters because size matters. So with that spicy note. So basically what I'm trying to say here is don't forget that crawlers analyze your code. So the bigger the code, the more megabytes it is, doesn't matter what it is, images, code itself, interactions, whatever you add there, that uses up crawling budget. So an easy way to think about it, Google will crawl more pages if they're smaller. So for example, you have 2 pages that are 5 megabytes each, let's say hypothetically, and then you have a 10 megabyte crawling budget per day, let's say. And that's that's the only thing that Google will crawl. But if you have like 3 pages, which are each like 2 megabytes, or 5 pages that are each 2 megabytes, then they would crawl 5 pages. So basically understand that every megabyte you add to your site kind of increases that time that it will take for the website to be crawled. So if you can keep it simple, you know. So yeah, so we're almost at the end. If anybody has any questions, we'll like have 5 or maybe a little bit more minutes left. Not necessarily we're gonna end by the hour. If anybody has anything interesting to ask or wanna kind of look at something, but the summary is simple. Make sure you allow index. Help Google to crawl your site. Don't stop it from make it difficult. So basically make it as easy as possible. Make it indexable. Submit sitemap as soon as you can, as soon as you want it to be submitted. Link to everything as much as you can, as long as it makes sense. And then keep it lean. So keep the code, interactions, everything as lean as you can. If it's mandatory, it's mandatory. But if it's not mandatory, really think about it. Like, do you want a fast and good experience for everybody? So both for humans and robots. So look for that golden kind of ratio where it's everybody wins. Get links from other websites. It's against Google policy to do anything to get links, but also it's still a thing that needs to be addressed. So, you know, I'm not gonna touch the subject, but it's both. It's both mandatory and in theory should not be done. So, you know, don't publish shitty or duplicate content. As in, if you're releasing any type of new page, make sure there's plenty of content, make sure it matches what you want to rank for, make sure a lot of things matches. Usually SEO's job is to do that, or content strategists or content manager, whatever. They have to know how this part is fixed, but just basically don't create pages just to create pages, and especially don't create pages when you create just a lot of them by just, you know, adding, oh, let's create this collection that will sort all this data that we have, and let's add like 30 sorting or 40 or 50 or 100 sorting filters and just spin it. That's just gonna make low quality pages, and that's not what you want. Have patience. This is like, you can you know, bookmark this second and this stream later and send to your clients whenever they ask anything about indexing. So if you're here because somebody sent you this, they're just trying to say, relax, it's all gonna be good. Do everything else, and then after you do that, just be patient, and it's gradually gonna happen. Yeah, so make sure there's quality content. Make sure, because realize this thing, that Google assumes that content is low quality until proven otherwise. So, and every time they find a great page on your website, they will assume you have more, and the more they find, the more they will trust you. So get Google to trust you. That's like how indexing works. That's why big, old, high quality websites can be indexed today in a matter of minutes, can be on page 1 or even position 1 in a matter of hours, and you can't if this is a new website you launched, because they can be trusted and you can't. So it's all about trust and organization. So to summarize, keep sites organized, do the best content you can, and build the most backlinks, which is basically SEO is just content and backlinks, right? And then for crawling, it adds that organized part. So content, backlinks, organized, everything together. So yeah, that's short for indexing, and it's been, oh wow, it's been exactly almost an hour. Wow, I didn't expect actually that, but yeah. So if anybody has a question, please do ask it. We can chat about it, but indexing is not a topic that is complex, nor it's a topic that it's simple in the way, because it's not in your hands, a lot of things, so it's normal. And those who are still here, I'm gonna kind of talk about next week. So next week we are having Colin here, which is, by the way, you can see him in the comments, and he's gonna be sharing with us something. Colin has a site that is a programmatic SEO site, and when he sent me a link to kind of check it out in a read-only link, I was thinking, hey, everybody has to see it in Webflow community, because that whole SEO thing is a stigma for some people, and he clearly knows what he's doing. And I was so amazed to kind of finally see like a programmatic SEO build, because all the builds that I touched and I was thinking to do in Webflow that were programmatic SEO, they would be quite difficult to do because of CMS. Yeah, yes, Colin is excited and I am too. So basically with Webflow, all the programmatic SEO builds that I started working on, I realized almost instantly by just doing some math in a spreadsheet, by calculating some of the data, that it will not fit the CMS collection item, maximum capacity of 10,000. And Colin has a site that is amazingly in that range where it's all good. It's not too big, not too small, and it fits perfectly there. And also, like, for those who don't know what's programmatic SEO, it's going to be a very good kind of entry. And the goal for that next week is to just chat about, learn more a bit about Colin. Where did he get data from? A lot of other things. So yeah, so that's next week, and I'm super excited to kind of have that happening, because I really was waiting for somebody to eventually pop up and have a build like this. And Colin is kind of wants to share it with us, so it's awesome. It's gonna be amazing. Just see you guys all next week, and Colin will be here and I'll be here, and it's more of an interview type of thing. But we're also gonna look into how to structure sites. And by the way, if you guys don't follow Colin on Twitter, then please do so, because he shares. It's gonna be a good teaser if you do find him. So Colin can share his Twitter handle. I forgot. I think it's Colonizer or something like that, right? So he shared initial launch metrics, and it's a hockey stick, just like way up, and thousands of visitors immediately. So a lot of people in the Webflow community kind of wants that, to learn how that's done. And there is a way, and that's, programmatic SEO, but that requires like a lot of content, a lot of data, and a lot of thinking about what exactly this page template does, and what exactly it's gonna do in the search, what SERPs it's touching. There's a lot of things, so that's gonna be awesome. So I will make sure to fix the comment things, but today it was just a little bit buggy, and that's that, guys. So yeah. It was awesome. I know the topic is not the most intense, but also at the same time, I think this video touches on almost everything there is to touch, at least on the basic level. And then the next kind of thing, if you watch this and you don't think it solved your problem, then it's always going to be some sort of technical issue to look into, and just keep digging, Google problems that you might be having, and Google things that you're doing, and you're gonna find technical issues. But crawling is this thing. If it's structured properly, Google can fix code problems or technical problems. Basically, they have algorithms that don't care about some mistakes that you make, because they can understand stuff even if you didn't make it. So yeah, all right, guys, it was awesome. See you next month. See you next week. And same time, same place. And next week we're talking about programmatic SEO. We're gonna see an actual Webflow build that is ranking, and that is an awesome build that I was so happy to see. And I was like, yo, can we do